Hi everyone, welcome to a new video devotion for today. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, terrific Tuesday, tremendous Tuesday to all of you in the name of Jesus Christ. If you go to my YouTube, you may find that I've actually deleted my the last devotion video which I've done. I review it and it looks horrible, so I don't think many people understood that message. The title was entitled "Well Prepared to Share Well," well prepared to share well, and the way it was prepared or presented wasn't well shared, in the sense that I didn't share it well. So basically, what I wanted to share in that video was this: that if you and I want to be truly used by God, to be able to give a reason for why we believe, give a reason that Jesus is our Lord and Savior, then it's important that we do not just speak from our experience, do not just share from the goals or callings that God has given us, but also not just share from the dreams and vision, which is very personal to us, but truly get into the Word, because God and Word is one, and God will always use the Word to confirm what He's actually speaking through us. So even the great Apostle Paul, when he was in Thessalonica, he actually spent 3 weekends in Thessalonica after he came from Philippi to just share with the Jews, the people that went to the synagogue, even Greek believing followers, disciples of Judaism, that Jesus was the Messiah, Jesus was the Christ who has come to suffer. And what did Paul do? He used scripture. So God used scripture. So for you and I, we do need to have scripture if we want to be able to speak forth with might and power, even in a gentle form. We don't have to argue aggressively, we don't have to argue, but we can be very assertive in our sharing of the word, simply because we have the backing of the scriptures that is found in the Bible for you and I. Today, what I want to share quickly is entitled "The Work of Rest." The work of rest. And I'm taking from Hebrews chapter 4, and I'm reading from the New American Standard Bible. So if you have your Bible, turn to Hebrews chapter 4, and let me read to you from the NASB. Verse 1, "Therefore let us fear, if while a promise remains of entering his rest, any one of you may seem to have come short of it. For indeed we have had good news preached to us, just as they also. But the word they heard did not profit them, because it was not united by faith in those who heard. For we who have believed enter that rest, just as he has said, as I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest, although his works were finished from the foundation of the world." Verse 4, "For he has said somewhere concerning the seventh day, and God rested on the seventh day from all his works." And again, this passage, "They shall not enter my rest." Therefore, verse 6, "Therefore, since it remains for some to enter his rest, and those who formerly had good news preached to them failed to enter because of disobedience, he again fixes a certain day, today, saying to David, after so long a time, just as been said before, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts." Do not harden your hearts. When we actually look into that, we actually find that God, Jesus' work is a work of rest. it is a work of rest. Now I'm not a mathematical genius, but I look into the life of, I calculate, simple calculation, yeah. Jesus was born, and the next time he was mentioned in scripture was in the Gospel of Luke. And in Luke chapter 12, he was found going to Jerusalem. Why? Because that was the coming of age. I think they call it the Bar Mitzvah. All right, coming of age. So he went to Jerusalem with his parents to celebrate and his coming of age. You find that then he went back. The parents found him 3 days later in the temple, and then he went back. And then the next time we hear about Jesus, he's already 30 years old. So from 12 to 30, you have an 18-year gap of not knowing what Jesus do. We all know from scripture that Jesus was obedient to his earthly parents. And then on the age of 30, we found that he started his ministry by coming to John the Baptist to be baptized, and then he had his 3 years odd to do his ministry. Now, if you take 18 divide by 3, you get 6. So the 18 years is like the 6th day of work. 6th day of work under human calculation of work, or human thinking of work. So he worked as a carpenter. That's why later on people say that, isn't this the carpenter's son? Okay. His father was a carpenter, Jesus was a carpenter, and then you have 3 years. So Jesus, then, in Genesis, we find that God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day, he rested. So if 6 divided by 3, you get, 18 divided by 3, you get 6. That means the 3 odd years of Jesus' ministry was on the 7th day. Jesus says, what I see my Father do, that I do. So Father was working from the work of rest. So why was Jesus the work of rest in his ministry? Simply because he wants us to enter that rest. And if you read from Hebrews chapter 4, it says this. It says that it says in verse 3, for we who have believed entered that rest. We who have believed entered that rest. When we believe Jesus as our righteousness, Jesus as our Lord, Jesus as our Savior, we entered that rest, and we continue in that rest. In human way of thinking, many a times when humans think about rest, they work very hard, and then they have everything secured, and then they rest. It's almost the same as Jesus Christ. For 18 years since he became a man at the age of 12 all the way to the age of 30, he worked as a carpenter with his father's business, Joseph with his father's business, and then at the age of 30, he entered into the work of his heavenly Father, which is the work of rest. And therefore, what Jesus did in the 3 odd years of ministry, what he did was from rest. You find that many of his miracles were done on the Sabbath, and Sabbath was actually a day of rest for the Jews. So when we want to be able to see God move in our life, we need to understand that we have actually entered that rest. We are not working to get into that rest. We have entered that rest. And when we have entered that rest, whatever we do is therefore from rest. Our work has become the work of rest. He says this, he says that we had the good news, for indeed we had the good news preached to us. And what's the good news? That we have entered that rest. It says that God rested on the seventh day from all his work. And again, in this passage, they shall not enter my rest. Therefore, since it remains for some to enter, and those who formerly had the good news preached to them failed to enter because of disobedience. Now, why did they not enter the rest? What was the good news? The good news was that God has rescued them. God wanted to just have that dialogue relationship, that conversation relationship with the nation of Israel. But Israel wanted instead to have a set of rules and regulation to be able to communicate with God, to enjoy God's goodness and blessing. But God's way is that you enter that rest. You and I trust him for everything, every aspect in our life. And when we believe, when we are at rest for all his word, and that was why the previous sharing which I've taken down is well prepared to share well. When we are well rooted in scripture, when we are well studied, well acquainted with the word of God, we can believe every word of God, every promise of God in the word, because God is truth. He cannot lie. And therefore, if God promised to look after you and I, if God promised to cover us with his grace, if God promised that he will see us through no matter how difficult, no matter how confusing, no matter how complex our situation may be, God will see us through, because if he says it in the word, his word is true and he will perform it. And therefore, because we are well grounded in the word of God, we understand, and when we trust that word, that is faith, we can be at rest. And whatever we do is actually working from rest, not working to enter his rest. We who have believed Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, has become the righteousness of God in Christ, have access to the fullness of God in Christ, and therefore we in Christ can do the work of rest. Beloved, today, if you're listening to this, I just want to encourage you that whatever you do, see that you are completely accepted in Christ Jesus. You are completely beloved by God the Father. You are completely empowered by the Holy Spirit. Why? Because God has done this for us so that we can always work from rest and be in rest. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. I pray that God's grace, his overwhelming, never-ending grace of God be upon you, your family, your church, your business, in every day of your life. In Jesus' name. God bless you. Love you all. Amen. God bless you. Bye-bye.